Hello YouTubers, welcome to part 3 of building a website with AngularJS. Right, up until part 2 I didn't have any video and I didn't have any audio, but now we do, so yay! Yay for us. Makes it easier for me to explain what I'm doing rather than just skipping around the screen with a mouse. Right, so where we're at the moment is we have the Angular app set up. We have our main Angular app JavaScript file, which defines our module, which is called app. We've injected the ng root in there. Now, as of I think it was, could be wrong, but I think it was Angular 1.2, might be 1.9, maybe even 7. They separated out the routing from the main Angular module, so now we have to inject it in. Just like if we were injecting cookies, or wanted the cookie functionality, you again inject it into the array on your module. We've set up the config, injecting the root provider and the location provider. Now the root provider allows us to set up our Angular roots. We don't have to use the Angular root provider. There is, I think it's root UI that we can use. It extends root provider and allows us more ways of setting up our roots. We're not going to discuss that on this one. I might do a video later on at a later date using UI router, but for today we're going to stick with the Angular routing. It's simple, it's easy, and anybody can understand it. UI router, it's more in depth and there's more ways of doing things. You end up with parent-child hierarchical structure with regards to navigation, and it's far too in depth. Not for this video. I want something simple and easy. We've injected the location provider to allow us to set HTML5 mode, which removes, if you remember, I think it was video 1, removes the hash from the URL. If you remember looking at the video, we had that, and it's okay, but I don't want people to know we're using Angular. The best way to not have people know we're using Angular, remove the hash bang. Doesn't look like Angular now. So that's why we remove the hash bang. So setting HTML5 mode to true states that we want to use a normal URL. We don't want to use the hash. So let's remove the hash from the URL. We've set up 4 main template views for About Me, Contact, Home and Portfolio. And we've set up the main index view. We've added the ng app directive, which states that this app... Sorry, we have a special guest today. We've got my son Isaac. He's telling me to shut up because he's wanting to watch Pockio, but obviously he's going to have to put up with me for a minute. Where were we? We've got the ng app directive that states that this will be controlled by our app module. We have the ng view, which is the child of the ng app with regards to scopes, which we'll talk about shortly. Which is where our templates will be injected in, swapped in, however you want to see it. This is where our templates will be placed. And we've set up some simple navigation. Now, in this video, we're going to take the navigation. We are going to remove the hard-coded URLs, or the hard-coded links, and the text, and we're going to replace it with dynamically generated content pushed in or pulled in from a controller, which we're going to add now. We're going to add a navigation controller. I'm going to add it to our module. I'm going to state that this is a controller. We're going to name the controller. Now, names for controllers are case sensitive. So whenever we name them here, if we ever want to use them again throughout any of our code, when we inject it, we have to use the same name that we've used here. I would suggest also, like I've done, state that it's a controller. See, we're not all infallible. We all make mistakes, even me. Okay, so seem to be making a few of them today. I can use music in the background. Really funny. Now, for the, I'd say for the aid of simplicity, but not, because I'm going to use it. If we were to write our function like this and we minified it, it would probably break. So with regards to code that you want to use for in a development environment, you can write them like this, but if you ever want to make a production and you want to minify it, shrinking down the file size, compressing the code, to make it faster when it comes up to uploading or pulling down to a browser, then I would suggest you use the technique to minify it. Now, when minifying an Angular, controller, service, anything to do with Angular, if you want to minify it, same as I think any other JavaScript file, you set it up for minification. Now, with Angular, square brackets around your function, add the name of the module or service or whatever you're injecting in between some speech marks, and then pass it into the function. And what will happen then is when you minify it, the name scope in both places will be swapped out for a letter. Could be anything. And what will happen then is A will be mapped to A. If you had a service on there, then service, let's say service equals B, B would be mapped to then B, and so on and so forth. If you didn't have these, it wouldn't know how to map it, so it probably wouldn't work. But anyway, that's another story. Maybe we'll talk about in depth at some point. Now we've got our controller defined. We are using scope. Now, scope, as I said, we'll talk about this shortly. In fact, probably a good time to talk about it now. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Right, okay, so scope is, think of it like a border to a window. Scope is the border. Anything inside that border is within this template or within this control, defined within this controller, will be used and only accessible via the view that's attached to this controller or its parent. Sorry, no, or its children. Yeah, or its children. The parent can't access them unless we emit it up to the parent. But any children of this controller or of this scope will be able to view and access. Obviously, again, we've got the parent-child hierarchy. But for the meantime, we'll just stick with a single scope. We're going to add to the scope our navigation. Oh, sorry, that needs to be an array because we're going to add more than one element. And inside here, we're going to have 4 objects, each with a name and a link. Okay, and like I say, we need 4, so we'll copy and paste. Our objects. Whoops, daisy. Oh, you see him in the background walking past? That's my little tyrant Isaac. Okay, so we've got home, portfolio, we have about me, and we have contact me, and we have our links. Portfolio, about me, and contact. Right. Now we've got the object set up. We can start to break this down. Now, this navigation is going to be controlled by and only by a single controller, which will be the navigation controller. So we specify using an Angular directive NG controller that we are going to use the nav controller. So anything inside here now will be used by the nav controller. Now we need to say that we're using a model and which model we're going to be using. We're going to be using the navigation model, and now we're going to be using another NG directive or Angular directive or NG repeat. And what this is, it's a looping construct. Okay, so what we've done here is we've said that for every navigation element inside the navigation model, we want to access the name and the link. So that's accessing the link, and this one will be the name or the title. As you can already tell, the amount of HTML that we've used is a lot less. We're only using one LI inside the navigational HTML element instead of 4. We've now 1, which is great. But does it work? No. Why not? Because we need to add it to our file, to our index view, so then it's accessible. Script, source, part of the app, or app, controllers, navigation. Let's have a look now. Oh, and there it is. There's our navigation, and it's still. Oh. We'd think it still works, but obviously it looks like I've actually tried to add an About Me controller here. Oh yes, there it is. I remember that. Let's take it off. Whatever. There we go. And they're all working again. Now the joys of this is, because they're set here, I want to use a service to set up my navigation. I can call the server, or make a single call to the server to say, pass me the navigation that's stored in the database, build my objects, pass those back as a JSON object or whatever into the scope on the navigation model, and again it will work. And if I change anything inside of here, it will be reflected straight away here. So I only have to do it in one place here. I don't have to now go back to the file, to the index file. I don't have to change it in the index in the hardcode HTML. I can just change it in the model that's passed back to here. In fact, tell you what, let's start live reload, because that way it makes my life a bit easier. Do I get a reflection? Are you going to update?
Isn't that exciting?
Come on, live reload. Ah. Are you not watching this folder? I don't think you are. Let's watch that one specifically. Yes, please compile those. No, don't. No. Right, okay, so that should be that. Now, he says, there we go, that's better. Now live reload's taken over. It means it'll just recompile it and straight away it's there. I don't have to keep going back as if we're reloading it. It's great. Maybe I should do a video on that. If you want live reload, go to live reload.com. Plug for live reload here. It's an awesome tool. You should really get it. It's for Mac. However, if you look a little bit further down, we do have a Windows. Now, it does work on Windows. Every now and again, it's has a bit of an issue depending on what Windows you're using. says it requires XP. Obviously, XP is no longer supported by Microsoft because Microsoft don't want anything to do with it anymore. Obviously, you know, they've moved on. We're on Windows 8, maybe even Windows 10, from what I've heard. But it does work on Windows. Now, I have a Mac. I happen to like Mac, love Apple, all Apple products. Maybe the iPhone 6 is a bit, but again, different video. But I would definitely suggest getting something like Live Reload. If you can't get Live Reload to work, try, I think, Espresso, although that's specific to Mac, or Sublime. Sublime has a Live Reload plugin that I believe does work on Windows. So as you can see, I'm using WebStorm. Again, fantastic tool. Has plugin for Angular, which gives us the IntelliSense. But Sublime also has a plugin for Angular. I use that at work. I also use WebStorm at work sometimes as well. But I would, yeah, Sublime, very good. Definitely worth the purchase. Got plugins for pretty much everything. And I believe it does have a Live Reload plugin, which allows you to get the same functionalities I've got here on my Mac. No more reloading the page yourself, let it do it for you. Helps when it comes to development, faster development if you don't have to keep tap. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. As you can tell, navigation's done. We've pulled the navigation out. We've shrunk down the HTML. We've now got a nice little navigation module starting off. We've got the navigation controller. We have our navigation in our index file ready to be taken out, put into a directive. When the directive is set, we can then take this and put it into a template if we want, or we can put it into the directive. I think we might do that next, actually. And then we can say that this then can be put into a module of its own, which can then be referenced as a navigation module rather than having it spruced out. If we can put things in modules, it makes things nice and tidy. Helps make it maintainable and scalable, and you know, that's how we want it. We want things nice and neat. So, right, when we come back on part 4, that's what we'll do. We'll set up the navigation module. Okay, I shall see you in part 4. See you guys. Let's get out of the video. Bye bye.